Good morning. We're so glad we've got a good crowd here today. I think, like me, you all have disorganized children. I want to introduce Marcella Moran. She is a licensed psychotherapist who works with families to develop positive strategies for children and students who are disorganized. Marcella's unique skill of assessing a student's learning style and identifying an organizational style has proven to be a successful strategy for developing personalized organizational systems for students of all ages. She's the co-author of Organizing the Disorganized Child and has been featured in many national and international publications, including Redbook, Women's Day, the New York Times, Time Out Kids, and Chicago Time Out Kids. She does have business cards here up on the table if anyone wants one. And without further ado, I introduce Marcella Moran.
Thank you. Thank you. So we got ourselves started here. Just bear with me for a second. Okay, here we go. Okay, so hi, welcome. Wow, this is a nice crowd. This is a nice crowd. Okay, I was here about, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. So it's nice to be back. I was just talking before about Edgemont and how much I loved the campus. It really does prepare the kids for when they go to college because they know what it's like to be on like a campus setting. So I always love it. It's probably my favorite school property in Westchester. So hats off to you. Okay, so yeah, I help kids get organized. I'm busy. I'm very busy, as you can imagine.
How's it working out for you?
I'm tired a little bit. I've been doing it a really long time. I'll give you a little bit more of a background, tiny bit. I started off as a guidance counselor. I was in the city, I was in the Bronx. It was a real awakening to see how many struggles the kids had in keeping organized and just their learning styles and such. And then I moved up to Westchester because so many people told me, get out of the Bronx and go up to Westchester. So I followed and I did. And I was there until I had some kids. And I took some time off, but in between that, I was a college advisor. So I always help the kids that I work with the college process. I do not do it independently anymore. Because, as you can imagine, anybody who's gone through the process, it's a lot. So I then ended up not going back to being a guidance counselor, but going to Fordham University and eventually running the Office of Disability Services, which they have since changed because I hate that name, as well as the Counseling and Psych Services. And it was really there that I realized, there's something to these executive functions and there's something to organizing a little bit differently. And I started having those aha moments and realized, we have organizing styles and they're a little bit different. So to speed it up a little bit, I left Fordham, teamed up with Marty Kutcher, and here I am. So it's been great. I love it. I love working with the kids and the families too and helping them really find the strategies that really work for them. So when we're talking about being organized and disorganized, we're talking about executive functions. So what exactly, can you guys see my own? So what are the executive functions that we're talking about? We're talking about, you know what, I feel like all right. So we're talking about some executive functions like working memory. So things that we've learned in the past, they're bringing up in the front so we can solve some problems. Like when we learned in 4th grade the multiplication tables, we're still using them now. So that's a little bit of working memory. Hindsight. Yeah. How many of your kids keep repeating the same mistake over and over and over and over? Right? Mine did. Yeah. So that's hindsight. Their hindsight is if they're really disorganized, or if we're talking about some attention issues, their hindsight is not so strong. And that also goes for the foresight. Looking ahead. They're all about the now. They want all the pleasure now. They're not looking down the road. They're not planning out. It's all about now. So they do struggle with planning out, looking ahead, saying that, okay, I have a test on, it's Friday, I have a test on Tuesday, a really big test in the class I'm not really doing so well in, and I want to go to the concert, or I want to go on a sleepover, and there's no planning out. Or they may say, I'm going to study on Friday. I promise, I swear, it's my heart, promise, I am going to study on Friday. And then on Saturday, before the sleepover, I'm going to look at my flashcards, and you're sitting there and you're like, oh wow, this sounds great. They've got a great plan. Oh my God, don't listen to me. And then they don't do it. Right? Very hard to execute a plan. Very difficult. So some of them also have an issue with the concept of time. Right? Their 10 minutes might be different from the rest of the population, right? Yeah, every single person, I don't care how old they are, every single person that comes into me has an issue with time management. I should just write a book about time management, because it's really amazing. If you don't, but then think about this, if you don't have a really good concept of time, then time management is out the window. You have a really difficult time with that. I work with kids, probably everybody, with helping them come up with a plan for them. Once I understand their organizing style, which I'm going to talk about in a second, once I understand what really works for them, then we can sort of develop together, because it's not me always showing them what they have to do. I always say to them, I'm not walking you down the aisle, so you are going to lead me, and the goal is to get rid of me. So we always work together in coming up with ways that might help them, or should help them, I should say. Yeah, you know what? Yeah.
That might be a really good. Or you know what? If you could maybe shut off the light to here, it might be easier to see. Is that a possibility? It's up to the podium. The podium. Oh, okay. So let's. I thought it would have been okay. Let's go higher.
Yeah. How's that? Is that okay?
It's going to fill the screen either way, so it's better further back or closer.
That's perfect. True.
Oh, that's great.
That's okay?
Yes. Yeah. Or lighting director. That's awesome. So the execution of plan, right? They have this great, can you hear me if I talk like this?
Yeah.
Okay. They've got a great plan, but they can't start, or they can't follow through. That's a biggie. That is a biggie. This one, transitioning from one task to another. How many of you can tell, it's done mostly women, so I'm assuming that there's mostly people who make the meals in the house here, when you're saying to your child, okay, we're going to have dinner now in about 5 minutes. Wait, no, I have to finish. No, wait, yeah, give me 10 minutes. They can't move quickly. They need some time to transition. This, and I will talk about this later, this also means waking up. How many of you have a hard time getting your kid out of bed? Yeah, yes, that's a biggie. That is a biggie. Okay. So another big issue is procrastination, right? They keep putting it off. Now there's a couple of reasons why some kids who are really disorganized, why they may put studying some task that they find really difficult to do. One of the reasons is because they really can't get started. Now, I know that might sound a little ridiculous. I had an issue with my daughter. Yeah, Mother of the Year moment, where my daughter was about 6, and she was in a room. Her room was a disaster. American Girl dolls all over the place, clothes, Barbies, and it just was a disaster, right? And I told her, I said, get in there, just clean it up, clean it up. Back and forth, back and forth. I find her then crying, sitting on the pile of everything. And I go in, now I'm really frustrated at this time, like I said, Mother of the Year moment. I was so frustrated and I was really mad. I was like, just clean this. She's like, I don't know how to start. I said, what do you mean you don't know how to start? I don't know how to start, I don't know where to begin. And I realized, oh, she's right. She's right. She doesn't know how to begin. So a lot of times it's teaching them what to start with, how to break it up, so it doesn't seem so overwhelming. For us, it's like, okay, we can go in and we can say, all right, let's start with the shirts. Let's start with the American Girl dolls. And then make piles, and most of us probably could do that. But for kids who are disorganized, they really can't. Another one is fear of failure. Well, why should I bother? I'm only going to get like a 70 on the test. Why should I bother studying? I don't do well. I could do other things instead. And the opposite, the fear of success. What happens if I get a 90 on this test? Everyone is going to expect me to get a 90 every single time. I can't do that. There's too much pressure. Are you kidding me? I'll forget that. I'll stay in the 70s. That's a lot better. That really does happen. That really does happen. And as I said before, feeling very overwhelmed with the task. It may seem very easy to you. And please hear this. The task is not so easy for the kids. They are not adults. And their executive functions are still developing. It is okay to help your child break up the task into doable sections. You are not enabling them, you are helping them. You are making them feel comfortable that they can succeed. And you always want to be able to do that. This is such a pet peeve of mine. Please, if you call my office, don't ever say that your child is lazy. I'm like really biting my lip right now because I have such an issue with this. Your child is not lazy. There's a reason why they are not doing the task at hand. Why would they spend 3 hours working on a chem lab and not hand it in? Right? Did they do that on purpose? Did they do that because they were lazy? No. They don't have a strategy yet to how to manage their materials. Be mindful of that and try not to use lazy. How many have heard your kids when you may have said that they were lazy, and the kids say, no, I'm really trying. They may have not said it as calm as I'm saying it, but they are trying. Believe it or not, they are trying. A lot of kids who are disorganized feel very isolated and lonely. They feel that nobody will understand them, nobody gets it. It also creates a lot of tension in the house, too, and also for them at school. They feel frustrated, the adults in their life are frustrated, and they don't have an explanation for it. I don't know. I don't know why I do it. I really don't know why. And as parents, isn't that frustrating when the kid says that? It's like, oh. I remember our Mother of the Year. So I've had that said to me. I love this, the fine kids at the end. These are the fine kids, as I love to say. I'm fine, it's okay, it's fine. I've got it, it's fine. No, That's their way of saying, I don't really know what's going on, and I can handle it, and I don't want you involved. Not so long ago, I had a discussion with a parent about supervision and teaching kids strategies, all right? You cannot just show your child what to do and say, okay, good luck. You cannot do that. I'm sure many of you have already tried to do that. And has it worked? No. No, it hasn't. You have to supervise them. Now, I'm not saying enabling them, but helping them to get more organized. If they have strategies, if you're using a board, or if there's a list somewhere, a very short list, but if there's a list somewhere, you can remind them to check their list. Don't remind them of everything that's on the list, but go check their list. That takes you out of being the bad guy, and now it's the list that's the bad guy. Parents will ask me, well, what do I say to my child when we're talking about getting organized? Because it is a very touchy subject. When you're talking to your child, listen. Listen. Listen to what they have to say. Don't criticize. Don't be on your phone. Don't be wandering off. Say to them, okay, I hear what you're saying. And repeat it back to them. They want to feel validated. So many times kids will come into me and say, Mom or Dad, they just don't understand. Validate what they're saying. How can I help you? You're not alone. I have to tell you, a lot of times when I have kids who come in that are either, maybe they might have executive dysfunction or they have ADHD, well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right? So if that's the case, then tell your child that, you know what, I get it. I was like this in school. It was really hard for me. I want to be on your team. I want to work with you on this. I'm really sorry if I yell, if it seems that I'm mad. I'm frustrated, that I really want to help you and I don't always have the right tools to help you. Be honest. Be really honest. They'll appreciate that. And I don't care what age that is at. They really do appreciate the honesty. Okay, what type of organizing styles we have? Let's first talk about the visual organizer. I think a lot of these characteristics will make sense to you or those of you who have kids who might fall under this visual organizer. They will definitely think of missing items as to where they last saw them. They're kids who like color, they like fashion, they like everything in front of them. They will have the latest styles in clothes, backpacks, their rooms are very colorful. They like to use a lot of different highlighters, different pens to highlight things or just to mark things a little bit differently. They also feel very overwhelmed when their work area is visually overloaded. And that can also mean their room, their work area, their classroom. Eagle Hill, I've been to Eagle Hill quite a few times, and I love what Eagle Hill does. They really don't have a lot on their walls. It's very minimal. And I have always stressed, I've always stressed that. It just really helps the kids not get distracted and feel so overwhelmed. The comfy, cozy type of organizer who are most of the kids I work with. All right? I always say that I know who these kids are within 5 minutes of coming into my office because they're the ones who are sitting almost right on top of mom or dad, or they're playing with mom's hair, or mom has to scratch their back, and or they're in my Yogi Bo. Yeah. These are the kids who have to work in an area that they feel comfortable in. Their seat has to feel comfortable. Everything has to be within their reach. They are not going to move things aside to look for something, right? They're the kids who has to be within their grasp. So when they're working, their workspace will sometimes where they might have their math or their first subject they're going to work with, their second, third, everything is right along here. So they may be spread out on a big dining room table or a kitchen counter. These are the kids who will do very well in a class or will like a class that they feel connected to a teacher. They don't feel connected to a teacher, then a lot of times it's really kind of sort of hard for them to step up and do the work. I'm not saying that they can't, it's just difficult. These are also kids who can be incredibly sensitive. Sensitive to others, sensitive also sensory issues, where they may be the kids who need to turn their socks inside out, have their tags cut out. Certain smells, noise can really bother them. Taste, food, picky eaters, that's them. And the chronological sequential organizer, I don't see a lot of these type of kids. These are the kids who I really, when I first was working in this field, I really thought I would find a lot more kids who fell into this category, but I don't. I really don't. You know, given the technology where it is today, I really, honest to God, thought I would find more kids, but I don't. I don't. These are kids who really think in a sequential way. They have an organized mess, so to say. They know where everything is. It's almost like the absent-minded professor. Incredibly smart, incredibly smart. But don't touch anything in the room, because they will know that you were in there. And something that you would never think that they would know that you removed or moved to the other side of the room, oh, they'll know. So, strategies to initiate. This is a biggie for a lot of kids. So you can say to your child, all right, let's see what you can get done in 5 minutes. So you set up a situation where it's almost their back is against the wall, because you know kids can always, and also we all can, when we're down to the 11th wire, or the 11th hour, I should say, that we know that we have to do it, because if we don't do it, there's either we're not going to get the reward, or we're going to get punished. The circumstances are really dire. So our executive functions can really click in. Sometimes I will say to the kids, I used to say this more often, do the easiest task first. Kids who really need that feeling of success, or that, okay, I'm going, I've got one down, then I say do the easiest. However, I have since sort of changed my mind a little bit. I try to use it as, I use the analogy of a car. We start the day off with a full tank of gas, right? And for kids who are really disorganized, they are using 3/4 of that tank to stay focused, to pay attention, to do their work. Because when they're in some classes that are really boring, it is really difficult for them to sustain the attention in that class. So some kids will come home, by the time they come home, they might have 1/4, they might have an 1/8. They don't have a lot of gas in that tank. So, if an assignment that they're going to do is supposed to take them 45 minutes, they're better off doing it when they have some gas in the tank than later on when they're operating on fumes. Because it won't take them 45 minutes, it'll take them 90 minutes to do it. It'll take them much longer. A lot of kids will say to me, well, then I like to go on my phone, I like to go on my video games, and they have a hard time understanding that I'm not saying that you can't do that. I'm talking about moving tasks, moving them to different times of the day to get a task completed, the task that you're not crazy about, to get it completed, probably more efficiently, more accurately, in less time. Then you can do what you want to do, depending on the rules of the house, of course. So when I really break it down and explain it like that, you know, the kids will, oh, all right. So, and if they have a hard time trying it, and they're giving you a hard time about it, say, let's try it for 3 days. let's try it for 4 days and see how it works. Because a lot of times the kids will think it's going to be forever that they have to do this. But if you give them an opportunity to see if it's successful or not, and give like a certain amount of days, something that they can understand, then they're more willing to, probably more likely to participate. Okay, chunking the work. As I sort of touched on before, it's really important to break down the work for them, or help them break it down. Kids sometimes can feel this exaggerated sense of what they have to do. Some kids, it's almost as if they feel like they have to do the entire curriculum in that one night. It's so exaggerated. But if you break it down and use, and I'm going to show you some tools that I use with some kids, when you show them, when you break it down and you show them what they have to do, 9 out of 10 times, there's this big sigh of relief. Like, oh yeah, I can do that. That's not bad. Okay, I'll try that. Prioritizing your time, they need a lot of work with that. What should you do first? What are some, when you're making your time management plan, what are some activities that you cannot change? Practice, appointments, staying after school. Well, sometimes you can change that, but learning, for them to learn, because of course I always say, like I said in the beginning, the goal is to get rid of me. So you want them to be able to brainstorm on their own. So ask them, let's see, what are some of the activities that you have to do, or some of the tasks that you have to do that really you can't change. And let's put them in their place on the calendar. And what are the ones that you can change and such? And you have to help them really in the beginning to be able to do that. I love this. I am like a Post-it freak. I love Post-its. One of the things I have for some kids, for kids who are, say, the comfy, cozy, and the visual type of learners, I love this. For organizers, I should say, as well. What I like about it is that you can tear these off. You could put this, I always say put it in eyesight, not on the desk, because what's going to happen? Junk is going to be put on top. Put it in a place that they can see it, not necessarily you, because it's not for you, it's for your child. So what I like to do is I usually cut these in half, and I'll make little tabs. And I'll say one color is science, another color is math. And then what I do is I will write in, I suggest writing in the inflexible activities, right, because they're not really changing. So what I also like about this is that there's not a lot of crossing out, right? It's moving these tabs. So let's say that this is studying for a test that's on Friday, right? But grandma comes to the house and wants to take everybody out to dinner. So you can't really study that night. So you might, these are really good. I might move it to another night. So I'm not crossing it out and making a mess, right? Because what happens when you have a lot of crossing out? You might miss something in between the crossing out, right? So I just move it. Then, when I'm finished with the task, what do? And I throw it away. God, I feel so good, right? And the goal is to have a clean calendar. I do not like, depending on the age, for a lot of my high school kids, I do not do more than 2 weeks at a time. It's just too overwhelming. Depending on how disorganized they are, if kids are just slightly disorganized, you could probably do a full calendar, like a month. But if they're really feeling overwhelmed, only do 2 weeks. So what I will do is usually draw like I take a marker and draw a line through here. I always do this around finals at the end of the year. It just, it helps them to just chunk it in 2 weeks than to do the entire month of June. Okay. You can get these, get them online, Target, Staples, anywhere. I really like, I use these a lot. Oh, the agenda book. The agenda book. Yeah, that's a story in it, right? Yeah. I have a lot to say about this, but I'm going to try to really make it short. I like for the kids to use some sort of instrument to keep track of what they have to do, especially if they are missing assignments. As we know, Google Classroom doesn't always have everything, and it can be quite challenging for a lot of the kids. And it could be it doesn't have to necessarily be an agenda book. Listen, if your child is having a hard time just writing down what they have to do, then forget the agenda book. Just get them to start writing it down. I don't care where it is, honestly. I will have, I will put bigger Post-its on a folder. I will put it on the pocket. It's like, just use that. And that's been pretty successful for some kids. I also have, so I also will have some kids use, kids who are the comfy cozy, they're the ones who like to have everything with them. So this is a folder which, I'll just speed up the process and talk about it now. This is the same thing as an accordion folder. I hate accordion folders. You can put me on the record of saying I hate accordion folders, honest to God. I find it really hard to manipulate and navigate through, and it doesn't work for the majority of kids. I happen to like this one better. I find that it's the same concept, easier to manage. And I usually I'm always having to keep these in stock. So when I said before about keeping track, getting the kids to write down what they have to do, so if there's a folder, a binder, anything that they're using all the time, just get them to write in here. We want to do that before we start with any time management, because we really do have to get them to write it down. I happen to like the planners if they're willing to use a planner that has the whole week in it, so they can, once again, look ahead and look out and see the landscape of what they have to do for that week. Electronics, yeah, electronics, that's a biggie, right? For some of the kids who might not transition easily, who have a hard time really doing two things at once, packing up and listening, or packing up and writing down in their planner, I often say, if your teacher will allow it, or if you have that accommodation, that you can take a picture with your phone, especially in the high school where they'll let you do that. If your teacher is writing it on the board, just take a picture of it, so you don't have to write. Then there's also, I actually have it on mine, Post-it, the Post-it app, which comes right on your desktop for kids who are really using their computers or their laptops in school. They could use that. There's also another thing, I do this, is the super sticky Post-its are great. Post-it puts it out, it's the full adhesive page. I put reminders here. So if there's something that's going on, like, oh yeah, I gotta write that down. Because I don't like to stop and write, and I like to do this where it's really quick. Google Calendar. So, I am trying to think with you guys what you can download for, I'm not remembering if you guys allow the kids to download into a Google Calendar like this. It will be on the page. You do? Okay. So they can then copy. This is what I found. It's hard. I like to send them notifications. So, and it's hard when it's through a school district, it's hard to have somebody else come in and they can share their work with somebody else that does not have their school email. So what some kids do, say if you want your kids to share with you, and I'm not sure if you guys will have access, that they can make a copy of whatever they're putting down in their calendar, and then you can access the copy. Listen, you can always go on Google Help to do it. You can go on YouTube, thank God for YouTube, and they'll help you with it. And then from there, you can set up, you go into the notifications, like add reminders, add notifications. And that's what I do with I work with a lot of college kids. And I will, in fact, that is actually a few kids on there. Wow, from 2015, wow, that's old. But it's set up, so I would set up, say I would take this, right, they would say there was a paper due, or say there was a lab due, right here. So I would go in there, set up notification, a reminder, add notification. It can either go notification, which is a pop-up, that if you have their phone synced to it, which sometimes with Google it could be a little confusing. TinyCal is an app that will also allow you to go in and set reminders to their phones. It will sync the phone number to the Google account so that the notifications will come up on their phone. I also, when I want to remind them, I could do days, hours, minutes, weeks beforehand. I do not do it every day. Don't do it every day, because they will end up not seeing it after the second day. They'll just be like, oh yeah. And you cannot do it every single time, like the same time. You can't do it at 3 o'clock every day. You have to have it scattered. So maybe if you're going to set up a reminder or help them set up a reminder for a week, set up one for 5 days, 3 days, the day before. Do one at 10 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, and maybe one at 2:30. No, don't do 2:30. Do something in 3:30. Something where they're going to see it, and it might resonate with them. But scatter it. Scatter it. Don't have a pattern to it. If you have a pattern to anything that you want them to do, they're just going to have a blind eye to it. That's so important. How am I doing on time? Okay. Backpacks. This is always great in the beginning of the year, but not now. They already have their backpacks. But I'm a very big advocate of not a lot of pockets, because a lot of pockets mean a lot of missing items. Let the kids pick it out. The kids have to feel comfortable with it. It's absolutely ridiculous how heavy backpacks are. So something with a lot of support. It's so important that the kids pick it out, because they have to feel comfortable with it. Binders. Kids who are, I happen to like the staple binders. I find them really durable. So kids who are visual organizers will not like the big binder. It's too overwhelming for them. They like separate, something compartmental. They like separate binders for each subject. A comfy cozy is going to like a big binder with a couple of classes. They always like things together. Two-pocket folder. I will find sometimes that kids will have a two-pocket folder in their binder. Do not do that. If they need some pocket folders in their binder, use the dividers with the pockets, because it just takes up too much room and it's too awkward to navigate, and because I like things to be easy for them, like more of like easy access, clean looking, not so bulky. Huh? I got your ear on this one before. File box. So, especially middle school kids and high school kids, when we're cleaning out, now listen, I'm an organizer. I would love for these kids to clean up their binders and folders every week. God, that would be the biggest gift, right? But it's not happening. It's not happening. I love to be able to do it once a month if I can get them to do it. I usually, without a doubt, in 6 weeks, like every 6 weeks we will go through it. Or if I notice that there are a lot of papers in their backpack, their folders or binders, and it's not open for discussion, we've got to clean that out. So what I suggest that everybody use is a file box. I think even CVS had something like this, where you can take the top off. And I suggest having a hanging file folder for each class. Yes, it would be great if they could also have manila folders in there, file folders in there for quiz and tests, and another one for homework. But you know what? The organized kid will do that. The disorganized kid just wants to dump them. So that's fine, because we just want to get them out of where they are. So, and a lot of times at the end of the year, I will, well, before, let me back up. Before, when I'm putting the papers in there, I clip them together. So I have an idea of what time of year they were put in there. So I will organize all the papers, well, not we organize, all the papers that are clipped. So it's not a free-for-all, and I have, you know, I don't want to have 500 pieces of paper.
Why that versus a clear binder, which is what the teachers basically say to do, is take everything out and put it in a separate binder?
Less steps. I'm always into easy. But you know, and I have kids who use the binders, and that's fine. If they come in using that, that's fine. I'm not fixing what isn't broken. The desks, I kind of touched on that before. If you're looking to purchase a desk for your child, try to understand their organizing style. Kids who like to have everything in reach do really well with a bigger desk or an L-shaped desk where they can sort of move. I happen to like chairs that can swing, believe it or not, or can rock, because some kids need that sort of sensory input. For smaller kids, I like, anyone hear of bouncy bands? Bouncy bands is this, it's a thick band, like a thick rubber band that goes on a, say, a 4-leg chair that kids can sort of bounce their feet off of. These will be for like elementary kids or such. I also like when kids are on a bike and can, say, read or do some homework if you have a stationary bike. I also purchased some the pedals that you might see like in a nursing home or something. I have kids. I'm also up in I'm in Soundview Prep a few days a week, and I designed the program up there, a flexible support center that is modeled after my book and helps kids that are challenged with their executive functions, very disorganized, and we try to make it a very comfortable and sensory-driven room. Not that the kids there have any sort of sensory issues, but I'm very sensitive to that. And one of the things that I just introduced were these pedals on the bike, and it's amazing how many kids they're actually like fighting over who wants to use it. Which, and I got them cheap. I got them at like $27 in Target. It's great. Setting up the work area. This is really important too. So when you want to set up a desk, take everything off the desk. Have it clean. Talk to your child about 5 items that they want to have on that desk. What do they need? What do they need? Then take those 5 items, put them aside, have them sit in front of their desk, close their eyes, and say, okay, we're going to talk about, you want the pens? Pretend you're reaching for a pen. And then they'll reach here, and that if they're right-handed, they're going to reach here, left, probably here. It's going to be within reach, right? That's where you put the pens. Say, okay, your next item is maybe your computer. Where would you like your computer to be? And such. And it really helps them to see it like a visual of it, imagery. Also, then they can't blame you for it, right? They decided where everything's going to go. These are just samples. I have these in the book. These are just samples of what a visual organizer might have a desk of. I'm really not a fan of the hutch. even though, you know, we have this picture. I'm not a huge fan of that. Especially for a visual organizer where it's going to be out of sight when they're sitting. But I do like it off the desk. The spatial organizer is going to have everything within their reach. And see over in the far right is, they say the printer. It's a little bit of an angle to that desk. And they have their file cabinet. And the chronological organizer is going to have usually like one of these sort of organizers where they might label paper, handouts, tests, whatever it is that they want to use. Asking for help. We are always telling our kids to ask for help, and they have a hard time asking for help. Remember, they always remember that the kids don't really want to out themselves, so that's part of not asking for help, right? If I ask a teacher for help, first of all, I don't know what to say. Second of all, they're always going to be checking in with me to make sure I understand this. You know, it's, once again, it's incredible, the imagination and the overgeneralization that these kids have. I practice with them as to what to say, how to ask a question. When they're taking a test, I say this to all my kids. Have your kids say this to the teachers. When they're taking a test or they have a question about something, this is what I think you might be asking me. So then the teacher can better understand the thought process of your child, can better understand how your child is viewing and interpreting that question. It helps a lot. And it's win-win for everybody. Sometimes in the classroom, the kids just, you know, listen, at this age, at the preteen and the teen, it's all about fitting in for most of the kids. They do not want to seem that they are different. They do not want to appear to their friends that they need help, right? Or that they might be struggling. So, for a child who might drift off, I always suggest to the child and the parent to have a secret agreement with the teacher that every time the teacher may see the child drifting off, that when I had one teacher do, she had actually a bottle cap, and when she would walk around just sort of checking or just talking, she would just have this in her hand, nobody noticed anything, and she'd go around and she'd come across the child who was drifting, and the agreement that they had was that when she dropped this on his desk, he realized that was the clue, you're drifting off. Nobody knew what was going on except the student and the teacher. It was great. It was great. Study skills. I really like moving around. I mean, a lot of these are a little obvious. Flashcards, when they're learning a language, to use blue for the male, masculine I should say, and pink for the feminine. Tenses, songs are always great. Study groups for kids who are more of that comfy cozy. They'll learn, yes, sometimes you might have to monitor them that they don't go on talking about something else, but for the most part they learn from being in that group, and it keeps them more engaged. Studying at the right time is key, right? Remember with the gas in the car? It's huge. Control apps? Oh yeah. Okay. If you have an issue with your child with the internet, you have to help them sort of monitor it. Now, this is always like a hard discussion that I have with the child in front of me because I always want them to sort of step out, but the parent really needs to put the controls on it at this age. you have to go into their computer and set up the controls. Because if you have your child do it, they will also undo it, which has happened many times. You do this until they have gotten in the habit of realizing, okay, all of the social media, the YouTube, the gaming happens after the studying. Okay, the nighttime. This is also falls into the transitions. Have them do as much as they can at night. Put the bag by the door, pack everything up. If you have a child who has a hard time deciding what they're going to wear, have them pick out 3 outfits the night before, possibly 3 outfits, and have them do their best in committing that they're not going back into their closet to change to change their minds. The morning, okay, so the morning's tough, yes. For the kids, remember I mentioned about the concept of time? This is a time timer. This allows the kids to see time. So in the morning, when they're still half asleep, if they have 20 minutes to get ready, you put this at 20 minutes. You keep this, and there's also bigger ones, you keep this in a place where they can see it, and you also coordinate what time you're putting in so they're not moving this. Because I've had some kids do that. Then it goes, it moves, and then it rings. I don't have a battery in it, but it rings when the timer is up. So when you're asking your child, are you ready, are you ready? Did you wash your face? Did you brush your teeth? No, no, no. Because then you become the nagger, right? Put it on the timer. Check your timer. What does your timer say? So now this is the bad guy, right? You're just reminding your child to check this, check in with the timer. I found this to be pretty effective in the morning. So you can get these on Amazon. Get this size, there's a small one, like a little clock one. Don't get that. Get either this one or there's a bigger one.
Why do you not recommend the smaller one?
I'm sorry?
Why do you not recommend the smaller one?
Because they may not see it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The bigger one, they're going to see more of the red. And also, because in the morning, they're half asleep. So they'll miss things. So just to recap, just understanding your child's organizing style. It is not, listen, organizing is not a one-size-fits-all. It's understanding the style that will really work best for your child. And sometimes, you know what, it's a combination of different styles. Just understand which style your child might be more prevalent with and go with those strategies first. And if you feel that your child might fall under another style, then go to those strategies. And help your child self-advocate, because that's huge. You're not going to college with them. They have to learn how to get organized, and I say this all the time. Make sure, if you have a very disorganized child, that they have their strategies in place by the time they go to college. Trust me on that. Trust me. If they don't have, I don't care how bright they are, the majority of kids, and I say this about 95 to 99% of the students that I work with, that I have, are incredibly bright kids. They have high IQs. It's their executive functions that get in the way and jam them up. They have to have strategies in place before they go away to college. Well, thank you. Did anyone have any questions?
You said something about the contrast between routine and shaking it up, right? So the irony in that is, if you help your child build a routine, then perhaps they can stick to that. But you're sort of recommending that we don't necessarily have them do the same, like moving things around so they don't sort of become complacent. Can you explain that a bit?
Well, if they have a good routine down, then that's fine. But if they're like, especially if you're setting up reminders or something where if they have a routine that's not really successful, that's when you have to shake up the reminders. If they have a routine that's working, you're not doing anything. That's fine. That's fine. But I think especially for reminders that you have to shake it up. You have to change them. Otherwise, it just, yeah. You know, they'll hit snooze on it if they have reminders at the same time. Like you hit snooze on when my alarm goes off at 7 o'clock. Oh, oh. Especially with reminders do that. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I just think I certainly am trying to get my child to get into a habit.
Yes.
But I think, ironically, this habitual practice becomes snooze, actually. That's a great word for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So maybe change it up a little bit.
So how about a child who's extremely disorganized, but they don't think they have a problem? They're like, I don't need help.
Oh, yeah. Welcome to my world. Yeah, yeah. Well,
They don't want to hear about strategies.
yeah. That is tough. A lot of times, they don't want to hear it from mom and dad because I always say to everybody, listen, you come to my house and work with my kids, and I'll come to your house and work with your kids. I say that all the time. There's that emotional piece. You know, I'll tell you this. My son, who has ADD, did not want to work with me. And I was a little upset with that. So I said, okay, then you do your thing. And I said, this will be the agreement. I'll give you the first marking period, and you do you, and I won't say anything. Well, you can imagine what happened, right? Yeah. So I let him do his thing, and then he realized that after when his grades came out what they were not good at all, then he allowed me to help him a little bit. That didn't last very long. I had to then hire somebody, actually somebody who works with me, who worked with him. That's sometimes what you have to do. I do say this, I say that, and I say this all the time when I'm talking to parents on the phone, that it's not, like, to bring them into to me or anybody else that does what I do, they have to be on board. If they come in kicking and screaming, they're not ready. They're not ready. And I won't take them. Because I won't do that to you, to the child. It's not, because I hope, and usually what happens is maybe a month, 2 months, even maybe sometimes 2 years. I get the call, they're ready. And I want the kids to know that I respect their feelings enough that they're not ready. So then when they are ready to come on board, they know that there's already this understanding with me and the child that I respect that. And I hear what they're saying. So when I'm also in those sort of situations, I have as a parent, I would have the guidance counselor talk to them with their grades, or I'd have the teacher talk to them. They may, I didn't say they will so emphatically, they may just present to you that they're fine and there is no problem. They may say something else to the guidance counselor or teacher. They know. It's all about saving face. They know. So don't get really, try not to get really furious with your kids when they are acting like everything is fine and that they don't have a problem. It's a lot of times just saving face. They know exactly what their grades are. And especially, I love the kids who say, I said, well, how are you doing in math? Well, I don't know. Right away, I know it's not good, right? Because the kids who are doing really well, oh, I have a 93. I have an 88, right? You're not gonna hear, I have a 72. I know that they're not doing well. So know that too. That's just like another hint. Anybody else?
Is it good to like set all this up to lead them to the organization?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Is it good for like me, for example, to get that doc, set it up to sort of lead them to that organization instead of, because I don't think my daughter would ever do it on her own.
Yeah, oh, especially with, or taking the papers out, you have to help them. I do this with high school kids. They will not do it on their own. It's very overwhelming. I was saying in the beginning that some tasks might seem so silly that like really you're overwhelmed by it. Oh my God, yeah, you will definitely have to help because they're looking at papers like this, some of the kids, and they don't know how to start. They don't know how to break it up. They don't know anything about it. So you will definitely have to help them. Some kids will, that's right. But if they're willing to do it, then that's great. I always have the kids bring it into me. It's much easier to have somebody else do it than that. It is. But if the kids are very resistant, they're not really ready yet, and somebody else will probably need to talk to them other than mom and dad. I find that that's a lot more effective. Anybody else?
I'm curious, so at what point does it become a habit? Because I find like you'll set it up, you'll talk about it, 2 months later it's a total disaster, you go back, you do it again, and at what point you say enough? Like you can only keep doing it for them or going through it with them, and it's not kicking in that it's like I got it, I like my stuff the way it is, you like it the way it is, I like the way it is, which is a mess.
Yeah. I would have a conversation about what is it that they like about their mess. Help me to understand what is it that you like, because I see something different, but I want to try to see it through your eyes. If they are following something for a while, and then usually what happens is that they'll practice this routine for a while. Parents will be on top, then they see that they're doing well, and then parents a lot of times will just sort of really drop off. You can't. That's what I'm saying about the supervision. You have to always sort of, you don't have to be here, but you have to be here to just sort of check in. Just like when kids come to me and I notice that they're doing really well. Really well means that they are using the strategies that we have talked about, and we have come up together, built up together as a team. And they're getting the grades that they should be getting. Their homework, say if they came in with issues of not handing in homework, their homework is handed in, all of that. I don't say, okay, done, you're done, you graduated. No. I then slowly start to decrease the amount of time they come to me. So, and then they may come every other week. Then if they're able to really still keep those strategies in place, then they'll come every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. Every person is different. So my suggestion then is to maybe knock back off the supervision as much and see what happens, because something's happening, that they're not as embedded, those routines are not as embedded as you may think. I would have a conversation also with your child. How are these working for you? What do you notice working for you? Just so I can understand. You know, I just want to understand so that we're working as a team. Remember, you're going to be a team in this. We're going to work together.
One of the big shifts between elementary school and junior high was that now everything is in Google Classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So we went from folders and writing things down, having physical files organized, to now everything is on the computer. And when I suggest, you know, a list or writing something down, because, you know, that's how we grew up, right? And that's what I need to do to keep myself organized. The children are saying, I don't need that. It has to be on Google Classroom. So you're just making an extra step for me. How do you work with that?
Yep.
And how do you limit screen time when they need their screen to do their homework?
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, I see this constantly. There is not, and this is issue. Not everybody's using Google Classroom. Personally, I am not a fan of Google Classroom, and I make that known. I just don't like it. I don't think it's efficient, and I just don't.
It's not intuitive as far as how it's organized.
And that's my personal feeling. I just don't. It's hard to keep track of the work that is due and that's been handed in, and I find it sometimes hard to. I find it hard to navigate with the missing assignments. So, especially with the kid who's disorganized, even though it says you can hand things in, it says you're supposed to, and it's supposed to be the responsibility of the student, not the kids I see. They're not pressing that something's been handed in.
That's
Yeah.
a huge
So,
problem that I'm having right now.
yeah. If there is missing work, you have to make it easy for them. That's because they're not going to buy into, especially right at junior high, they may not buy into spreading the things out. We've got to get them, this is a perfect example of, we have to get them just to write down the assignment, write down what they have to do. It could also be something as just writing the subject, math. Maybe not, and that will remind them to check the Google Classroom or the teacher's page.
The Google Classroom gets posted and updated constantly. I get texts all throughout my
Yes.
day.
Yes.
Midnight, 1 o'clock, which is great, except
Yes.
at what point are the kids supposed to
Yes.
know
Well, you know
what's
what?
accepted?
A lot of the
And
kids.
when we used to leave our classroom, I wrote it off the board into my book. The teacher couldn't change it till the next day, so I went back in. Here, it's constant. And
Yes.
I'm like, did you check the classroom? I checked 5 minutes ago. I'm like, well, she just posted it again now, so.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult.
Can I say one thing about the posted homework assignments? If you don't, I'm Kyle, I'm the principal here. I actually just sent out an email on Tuesday to faculty and staff related to this concern around when assignments are posted. We received an email last week that said that there were some assignments that were posted at like 8 at night for the next day, or posted on Sunday, due for Monday. So the announcement that was made was that if you post your homework assignment on the board during the school day, that's great. But if you post it on Google Classroom, it needs to be posted before the end of the school day. If it's due the next day, if it's due on Monday, it needs to be posted by end of school on Friday. We'll try to help with that. If I won't know though, if that's not being followed, so if it's not followed, please send me an email so we can follow up on that.
Just one quick question.
That's
on that,
really
then.
helpful. That's
I'm
awesome.
sorry, I don't want to pull away from you, but in relation to that, in regard to if a teacher is posting the homework consistently, that's how they use it, and then they don't post it, or maybe they set it in the classroom and then write it as the kids are walking out of the room, and then the kid missed it. Who's responsible?
So I would say again with things like that, let me know so then we can have conversations
Okay, so
with
there are
teachers,
certainly
because
teachers
there
doing
should be
that.
some consistency with the approach. If there's, this is very helpful. I'm thinking about students or everything that you're saying. If my mom is here right now, she would say, "Where were you when I was?" I was the kid with the trapper keeper that would open up and all it would papers would go flying. So this is really helpful. And knowing that, I think that's where the consistency is.
Right. So the consistency where the teacher didn't post it, but she set it in the classroom, and then the kid didn't catch it, for whatever reason, and then the kid gets stopped,
I would.
and half the class gets stopped.
I would hope that there's some consistency and some communication with how homework assignments are posted, and that is adhered to, and when it's not, there's a little flexibility. I don't want to take your time, but if there are issues with that, please reach out to me so we can continue to work on that.
Maybe in that type of situation, and that happens a lot, and especially with the kids I work with who have difficulty with transitioning. They can't hear what's being said because they're focused on, because when you work, they move a little bit slowly. They're not hearing anything. It's just like wah, 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 wah. That's all they hear. So in a case like that, if maybe helping the teachers to say, I understand that you might not know what the homework is until they're walking out the class because it will be a continuation of what we didn't finish in school. So if they can, the teachers can put that on Google Classroom and follow that, before the grade.
So I think one of the issues is that the children are expected to know how Google Classroom is organized, and there's not a lot of training that goes into that. would like the school to take a look at is, you know, how the children, if there is a kid who's consistently missing homework assignments or not understanding what needs to be done, you know, maybe we need to step back to it being moved to classroom.
I have another question. I mean, I don't think that Google Classroom will get a huge way with the kids' calendar, which is a huge problem. So, okay, an assignment was posted, now the kid has to go and take it to the calendar, which is now a problem.
You know what, you bring up a really good point. Is there a way that the teachers, I'm not looking to make extra work for teachers, but when they post something, like a homework and some sort of assignment on the page, can they just, and I think it's something on the back end, on their end, click it so they can go to the calendar. I find the calendar a lot easier to navigate, but the teachers have to do, I think, something on their end to connect it to the calendar.
So I don't know the answer to that, but I'm just taking some notes.
Yeah, just a suggestion.
If it wasn't on my, I live by my calendar. If I don't have it on my calendar, I'm going to have
Yeah, and
issues.
kids never
So-
transfer
It would be
So
maybe
if there is a way to do that, we'll see if that's a possibility.
I find it when I'm working with the kids, and can I tell you, every, well, no, not every district. No, every district does have Google Classroom. Some have like Schoology or Canvas or something, but I find that the kids who understand and who understand the calendar more, or understand what they have to do, and are less likely to be late with something or not hand in, is when when everything is connected to that calendar, where it's streamlined and they don't have to go through each class.
Exactly.
It's all in that one calendar. It's great. It's very easy to navigate, it's simple, and that's what you want for especially kids who are just going into middle school. It needs to be very simple and very easy to read.
Yeah, to go around this, I tried asking my son to use the Cozy app, for example, and it's a total disaster.
Yeah,
I get
yeah.
ahead every day, okay, look at Cozy, never happens, he never puts
No.
stuff there. And what's your opinion about outside apps to get them organized?
I think that they're not going to use it. I think that you can, there's some apps that now other calendars can sync with other calendars, so you can have two together, and that's fine. And I have like some kids using a family Google Calendar. So as long as it's really stated that this, or the color, all family events are in blue, you know, so it's really distinguishable, then it's fine. I think that's great. I mean, listen, in college, this is the way everything is going. In college, everything's online, and that's what they're going to have to get used to. Yes.
Hi,
I see you in the
Marcella.
back.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Victoria Newell, Superintendent. Thank you. I just want to point out what I really love that Marcelo said, for those of you who were here for Janelle Burley-Hoffman as well, was the asking questions. I love when you said, ask about, you know, what he or she likes about the mess. And Janelle Burley-Hoffman, who is here to talk to us about tech health, and how we're working with students about setting controls and about limiting versus giving free range. And she said the same thing. Remember, she said, understand what they are liking about posting, or understand what they are liking about Instagram, and try to get down and understand at that level. I thought that was such great advice, because that's kind of the common theme we're getting. And I also, in addition to Kyle, am taking notes, and maybe we need a parent lesson on Google Classroom as well. It sounds like the more we all understand, because all of us, I'm sure, are caught between paper and electronics, right? I still carry around my journal, and I carry my Chromebook, so I'm kind of two minds myself. But it takes both, right? I still have my list, and I still have my calendar. But for me, you know, really the things that I have to make meaning of and think about longer, I need to have with me in a different format. So I think the more we can help kids to do that, you know, certainly would be great. And I have one with piles on my desk. So if we're in my office, you know, I live with piles, but I can find them. But thank you for giving us a common direction to ask and listen and really get into their worlds and what they're doing and why.